My son called and said, "Why are you asking for $7,000 for a settlement?" I was shocked by the call. Apparently, his wife caused an accident while driving, injuring the other party. Is this a joke? I thought because the woman sitting across from me during lunch was none other than his wife, the one who supposedly caused the accident. While I hesitated, my son abruptly hung up the phone. I began to suspect it might be a scam, but the caller ID on my phone clearly showed his number. Fuming, I was about to refuse when my daughter-in-law smiled and stopped me. "Let's pay for now. I have a good idea." As the two of us collaborated, the situation took an unexpectedly interesting turn. "Mom, I finally got a job," my 32-year-old son George happily reported to me. "Oh, that's great," I replied. George had spent a long time as an NEET or part-time worker, and honestly, I had almost given up hope that he'd find a job, so I felt a huge sense of relief. Eventually, he married Olivia, a woman he got close to at work. Despite being 2 years younger than George, she was responsible and had a pleasant personality. We never had any mother-in-law and daughter-in-law issues. Although George and Olivia didn't live with me, Olivia and I occasionally had lunch together. I thought with a capable daughter-in-law and George having a respectable job, I could finally relax. But before marrying Olivia, my son had a troublesome habit. Despite having no income, he was careless with money and impulsively bought whatever he desired. He even stole money from my wallet a few times. "Why would you do such a thing?" I sternly scolded him, trying to get an explanation, but my son just pouted and turned away, refusing to speak. Taking money from your parents' wallet and acting like a child even at this age, I couldn't help but cry, feeling embarrassed. Given that experience, I was a bit anxious about my son's married life with Olivia. "Hey Olivia, how is George doing? Is he causing you any trouble?" "Oh, not at all," Olivia assured me, flexing her arm as if to emphasize her point. "It seems my son's household is under Olivia's capable management." "Oh, that's a relief. With you, everything will be fine," I sighed, grateful that George had found a good wife. One day, while having our usual lunch together, my daughter-in-law and I were enjoying our meal. Suddenly, my phone buzzed in my pocket, and when I checked the screen, it displayed my son's name as the caller. "Hello, George. What's going on? Why the sudden call?" George's voice sounded urgent, and I braced myself for bad news. However, his next words plunged me into a whirlwind of confusion. "Listen carefully, Mom. Olivia had an accident while driving." "What?" "The other party got injured, and they're really angry. They want us to pay $7,000 as a settlement." I glanced at the person sitting across from me, the bewildered expression on my daughter-in-law's face. "I'm George, anyway. If you can arrange the money, let me know right away. Bye." He hung up abruptly, leaving me stunned. After the call ended, I remained utterly bewildered, lost in thought. Olivia had an accident, but she's right here. I wondered if my son had misunderstood something, yet there was an odd tension in the air. "Mom, are you okay?" Olivia, wearing a puzzled expression, asked about the call from George. "I don't fully understand, but it's serious. George claimed that you had an accident." "What?" I was completely overwhelmed by the situation and desperate to come up with money. Olivia calmed me down and listened to my story. Not sure what George is talking about, she then rested her chin on her hand, deep in thought. "Perhaps we should suspect a scam," Olivia suggested, but that voice was undoubtedly George's unless he suddenly caught a cold and sounded different. He seemed fine this morning. If it's not him, then who? The phone number displayed on my mobile matched George's. Olivia and I exchanged puzzled glances, both lost in contemplation. After all, if you hadn't been in an accident, then that $7,000 settlement demand must be a lie. What could such a large sum be needed for? "I don't fully understand George's spending habits either," Olivia sighed. "Well, when you see his room, maybe he'd waste it on something trivial," Olivia explained. "What do you mean?" I asked. Olivia then shared details about George's recent behavior, and my anger flared up. "George did that? Unbelievable. I won't stand for it." I grabbed my phone intending to call George and give him a piece of my mind. But Olivia gently stopped me with a smile. "No need. Let's pay first." "Why?" "I've got a plan," Olivia said, her eyes twinkling. Hearing her revenge scheme for George, I couldn't help but grin. "That sounds intriguing. Let's teach him a lesson." "Exactly. It's time to put him in his place," Olivia declared, and so Olivia and I joined forces, ready to leave George speechless. 3 hours later, I pretended to be deceived and called my son back. I've got the $7,000 ready. Let's meet in person for the exchange. Wait a minute, I said to wire the money. George insisted. No, it won't work that way. Nowadays, banks scrutinize large wire transfers. It's more reliable to hand it over directly. Okay, where should we meet? I specified the meeting location and prepared a paper bag with the $7,000. Sorry for the wait, my son figured awkwardly, accompanied by an unfamiliar man. Who's this? I'm James. I'm the one his wife hit with her car, the man claiming to be the accident victim. James had a rugged face with visible scars. However, those scars appeared old and not recent. Moreover, it was evident that he wasn't an ordinary person. George grinned, relieved. Good, he brought the money. Hand over that $7,000 to me. Before that, I have a question. I glanced between the alleged victim and George. Our apologies for any inconvenience caused by Olivia. Could you provide details about the accident? Come on, does it really matter? George interjected. It does. We might be eligible for insurance compensation, and we need to understand what happened. James narrowed his eyes at me, looking annoyed. Look, I was suddenly involved in the accident, so I don't remember the details. Yeah, I wasn't with Olivia, so I'm not sure, George added. Isn't that strange? How could both of you know that she caused the accident in that state? I placed my hand on my hip and tilted my head, feigning curiosity. Wait, could it be that surveillance cameras or dash cams captured the incident? If so, could you show me the footage? Listen, lady, you've been nagging incessantly. Are you suggesting I'm lying? The self-proclaimed victim's low voice carried a threatening tone. Although I felt fear, I couldn't back down now. I don't want to assume you're lying. I'm simply asking for evidence if you have any. Summoning my courage, I continued to lock eyes with James. In the midst of our standoff, my son interrupted our conversation. Mom, stop it. Enough, enough. Just hand over that $7,000. His face clearly showed fear. Yeah, right. There's no evidence after all. I didn't cause any accidents, Olivia said as she appeared unexpectedly. George was utterly shocked by her appearance. Olivia, why are you here? He stammered. I didn't mention it, but when you called me, Olivia was having lunch with me, George stammered. That's absurd. I didn't hear anything. As my son retreated nervously, both Olivia and I closed in on him. Why lie and make your mom prepare $7,000? The jig is up. Surrender, Olivia demanded. We decided to present evidence to corner him. Actually, Olivia and I went to their house together to uncover George's misdeeds. While my son was away, we searched his room and found evidence of various wrongdoings. First, this is a loan agreement for debt, I said, holding up the document. It stipulated that if he didn't repay the borrowed $7,000 within a month, he'd have to pay additional delay damages. However, the amount was substantial and not from a reputable financial institution. I turned my attention to the person next to George. She wasn't involved in any accident, so who are you? James chuckled. Yes, I'm caught. As expected, the man claiming to be the accident victim was actually a debt collector who had lent money to my son. Your son asked for my help in securing the $7,000. Pretending to be the victim seemed like a good idea, but it's clearly not working. While James found it amusing, my son looked apologetic and shrank back nervously. So, you already know why your son borrowed $7,000, right? James continued. Yes. When I saw my son's room, I was speechless. I showed a photo of George's room taken with my smartphone. The room was filled with an overwhelming number of anime character dolls. I searched the price on my phone and was shocked. Figures can be so expensive. Among George's belongings, there were high-priced items exceeding $700. We also found receipts from when he purchased the figures, which served as evidence. As a parent, it's hard for me to say this, but my son is careless with money. His salary is entirely managed by his wife. Where would he find the money to buy such expensive things? If he stole from my wallet, I'd slap him immediately. We somehow understood the reason behind his debt, and my daughter-in-law and I were left dumbfounded by the trivial explanation. I knew about your hobby, but if it cost this much, I would have stopped you, Olivia said, glaring at our son with a mix of surprise and anger. Well, what else could I do? Figures are like works of art. Once in a lifetime. If you don't buy them at that moment, you might never get such rare items. George tried to justify himself, on the verge of tears. I understand that feeling, so you'll forgive me, right? With that $7,000, I can finally be free from debt. But George, borrowing money from questionable sources and making reckless purchases can lead your life astray, I said, delivering my message as I tossed a paper bag at George. He caught it, and as he checked the contents, his eyes widened in shock. What's this? Just newspaper cut into the shape of bills. I'm not that kind-hearted to prepare $7,000 when I know I'm being deceived. James chimed in, amused. Well, things have taken a turn. So George, isn't this a different story? George, holding the newspaper-made bundle, looked pale and bewildered. Hearing James's smug voice, he trembled. Olivia was furious with my son too, using my name to swindle money from my beloved mom. I can't believe it. I'm divorcing you, she declared. And I'm considering severing our family ties, I added. George stammered. Wait, both of you. Despite George's tearful pleas, Olivia and I shook off his grasp and left the scene. Behind me, I heard George sobbing while James burst into laughter. Afterward, I advised George to sell all the figures in his room and use that money to repay the debt. He seemed deeply troubled but accepted the advice and managed to raise the $7,000 to pay James back. I decided to sever ties with my son, but before doing so, I offered one last piece of advice. From now on, live an honest life. However, George's collector's instinct persisted, leading him to repeat the cycle of debt and find himself pursued by loan sharks. Olivia, once his wife, divorced him long ago, but we still enjoy lunches together. Reflecting on George's story, Olivia remarked, changing one's way of life isn't so simple for humans, and we shared a laugh. While watching her smile, I silently wished for Olivia's happiness. How did you find this story? Don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Until next time.